Chapter 16 deals with what we call the Battle of the Isms. I think it's one of the silliest chapter names, but yeah, I didn't write the book, so I'm not involved, I'm not responsible. But it does deal with movements we now refer to as isms, which is neoclassicism, romanticism, and realism. Where are we in time now? You'll remember the last chapter, we were talking about Rococo and this sort of frivolous, fun loving movement. Neoclassicism, of course, is going to be the opposite. It comes with the arrival of the Enlightenment, which is a movement that, in sort of history in general, humanities in general, that favors science over emotion and speaks a lot about how the scientific will always explain things. And so in this painting, for instance, the idea of like if you take air away from a bird, the bird will suffocate, right? But it's science. It's not anything that can't be empirically proven, right? You do this experiment over and over, you're going to get the same results. So it is a time period of clear and logical thinking. So notice again, we have these movements that oscillate between fun, rationality, right? Emotion, lack of emotion. It just sort of happens over and over again. So, what are some hallmarks of neoclassicism or the new classicism? Of course, that it's going to reference Greece and Rome, the Greco-Roman sort of world. The name just tells you that. But it's going to be a very moralistic movement. It's going to focus a lot on virtue and morals. It's going to think about order and rules, dedication, sacrifice. Gnosis is very different than the Rococo attitude of have fun, do what you want, right? So the inverse of that. It's a Stoic movement. Stoicism is a Greek school philosophy that says that emotion is dangerous. If you make a decision based off emotion, you're probably making the wrong one. And so there's going to be the influence of a Stoic attitude right in these pieces. The artworks are often very didactic or they teach you lessons. So again, they're not so much about fun. They're about like you should learn this concept or learn this idea. And they're often used for propaganda, usually governmental. So again, you'll notice neoclassicism, just this laundry list of things shows you that this is a very serious movement that has a lot of aims behind it. Now, I always show this piece as a way of seeing all this in motion, right? Seeing the idea of all these things happening, which is death of Socrates. If you don't know the story of Socrates, he was a Greek philosopher and he was sentenced to death for his beliefs. Long story short. And in this painting, we're seeing him taking the cup of hemlock, right? The cup of poison that he's been sentenced to drink. Now, why do I think this painting kind of tells us a lot about neoclassicism? Notice that he's the stoic center of the painting. He's emotionless, right? Everyone around him is reacting, right? If you know the background of the story, you know that Socrates could have fled his city-state. He could have went away from Athens and went to a different city-state. But he said to people, but how is that following the rules? How is that order? I can't. If I betray the order, then everyone else can too. He basically dies for principles, you know? So think about dedication, think about sacrifice. This guy is all about it. So, again, I show this painting and I speak to all these ideas that you see on that laundry list of aims. And this painting sort of sums it all up, that this guy's going to die to prove to others what the rules are, right? He's going to sacrifice himself. He's stoic and emotionless. And it definitely teaches us a lesson about the reality of neoclassical life. It's very serious indeed. And notice they're using a Greek story to get this across. So it's, again, neoclassical. And you can look around during the neoclassical time and you can kind of understand if you sort of get what's happening pop culturally, why they're interested. There's a lot of excavations at Pompeii and Herculaneum that are going on. These were Roman towns that were destroyed in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, the Republican Roman time period, particularly. And so you had homes that were decorated in Roman style and such. People were having their portraits painted as Romans and things like this. So Roman things were very much in fashion. So some of the highlights I'll show you, two of the paintings I think are really well known. There's, of course, David again. He's probably the best known neoclassicist in his Oath of the Horatii, or Horati, you hear it pronounced both ways, where you have this story of Rome and Alba. So again, Greece and Rome, right? These stories and how they were battling each other and no one was really winning. So they said, okay, send the three best fighters from each city. The Albans will send theirs, the Romans will send theirs. And here we see the Roman brothers who are going to go fight, taking their oath on their father's swords. To me, this is the epitome of neoclassicism: order, dedication, sacrifice. Right? Notice the women are the emotional ones, right? But the men are stoic. They're carrying out their mission and they're fighting for the honor, right, of their people. Very, very neoclassical. Or something like Hoffman's Cornelia presenting her children as her treasures. Another Roman story where you have Cornelia in white saying, "My children are what I value." I often say that neoclassicism boasts the moral mother, the mother who looks to her children as her pleasures, her treasures, right? Her duty. She's not like the Rococo woman on the swing at all, right? She has a job to do, and that's to raise these kids. And she's contrasted with the woman in red with her jewelry. And so you have this push and pull, right, of what duty and honor and sacrifice really mean, all presented to neoclassical viewers in a Roman package.